Hey, welcome to Sports Unfolded NHL ranking show, but very special show. We're talking about NHL free agent, the frenzy that's happened. I'm your host, Eric. My main man right there, Ron, my hockey guru, the man of all hockey knowledge as we know it. So going to put some pressure on you today because obviously free agency started about 3 hours ago. We've seen a ton of moves. We're going to break down each division, some of the teams in the divisions that actually made some moves, and then some guys that are still out there that we feel should be moving shortly. And we'll also talk about, obviously, our local team, the Boston Bruins, towards the end of our show. So let's start off in the Pacific Division. And the Edmonton Oilers, who definitely made some moves, finished second in the division last season. So you could see that there were some struggles in the playoffs. We know that series, they had a wild series where it was just 9 goals each, both sides. We talked defense. They didn't really make much move on defense, did they, Ron?
No. They haven't really done much of anything. Well, not much of anything. They did sign Kane, of course.
Yeah, and I think that was a great signing, and it wasn't much.
Oh, it is. It is. No, they got a good deal on Kane. They also re-signed Kulak, so that's a good signing, you know. But the big splash they've done so far was getting Jack Campbell, and so to shore up their goaltending. So whether that's going to help, is he better than Smith? Probably around the same, in my opinion. But he is used to playing with no defense out in Toronto. So now Toronto is not only looking for defense, they're also looking for goaltending, and they've going another direction as well. So that's a good signing for Edmonton, at least trying to shore up their goaltending. I believe it could be, an improvement over Smith, but marginal. But they also lost Duncan Keith to retirement, so that's big. Now they got to go out and get some defense. They have to. And, if they want to make a big splash and contend, they should go out and go get Klingberg from Dallas, because he's a free agent. There's speculation that he is now re-talking with Dallas because, the contract, talks aren't really going as well for him. A lot of teams can't afford that. So
what about the Seattle Kraken? Obviously, their first year last season, the expansion draft, they've made some moves here in free agency. Anything that you feel would maybe catapult them a little more in the division? So they finished last, only 60 points, went 27-49 last season with 6 overtime losses. So obviously much needed improvement for Seattle.
Oh, absolutely. And Ron Francis, he's not going to sit there and let things just, stand pat. Ron Francis went out and he got Justin Schultz, 2 years, $3 million each year. But the big splash has to be Burakovsky from Colorado. They went out, signed Burakovsky 5 years. I don't know what the terms are as yet. They haven't really announced the terms as of, 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
So can't wait to see the terms on that. But I'm guessing it's going to be somewhere, $4 to $6 million a year. My guess is around 5.
You also got to think about the experience, right? So Stanley Cup champion.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
He's won it twice. He won with Washington as well.
Yeah. So you're bringing in a guy with some experience to help, a new franchise try to understand the facts of winning.
Absolutely. So they're going to put that experience with a lot of young talent, and they have a lot of talent coming. So, um, I think Burakovsky knew he wasn't going to be able to get that money in Colorado because there's just not enough money to go around. Um, they have Colorado has 9 million left in cap space, but they're still trying to get Kadri,
Yeah,
and that could cover most of that. And then you're looking at down the road, they want to be able to keep McKinnon, so
yeah,
so you
that's
can't
very
spend too
important.
much of that money. So
No,
Burakovsky was not going to stay in Colorado because of that. So
no, makes sense. So we're going to talk about the Vancouver Canucks now, who last season trade deadline we kind of thought they were going to unload. They didn't. They were trying to make a playoff push,
they almost did. They
and
they
they
did
almost did.
well.
So, do you feel like they've added a piece or two here in free agency that might help them get into the playoffs?
Well, I think they've added some pieces to help. Um, First, I'll mention Lazar. They got Lazar as a free agent away from the Boston Bruins, which, when he was drafted by Buffalo, he was supposed to be a goal scorer. I haven't seen that yet, hence why the Bruins let him go. I mean, he only got 3 years for $1 million a year, so it's not like the Bruins couldn't afford him. It's just that there's a certain amount of spots on this roster, and you
Yeah,
can't waste any spots, because what the Bruins are trying to do, they're trying to be better than last season. And going in with the status quo, it's not going to work. But their big splash for Vancouver, I like Ilya Mikheyev. Um, he signed $4.7 million a season. I don't know what the terms are. I believe it's 3 years. Um, but he's a guy that has a lot of offensive talent, and I believe that they're hoping that he becomes better than expected talent in this league, and if he pans out, that could be a great thing for Vancouver because they've already got a lot of talent. With Miller and a bunch of these other guys,
yeah.
and I think with Boudreau as the coach, I think that this team can contend in that division.
And again, to our point earlier, they kept the core together.
Yeah,
So again, add a piece or two that could possibly change the complexity of your team enough to get you into the playoffs. It's
right.
ultimately what you want to do. The NHL playoffs is probably one of the hardest things in sports
Yeah,
from a competitive standpoint. Sometimes these pieces that you get now in free agency will help you get over that hurdle.
yeah, and you'll look at that division. Okay, so Calgary was the division leader, but they are not going to have Goudreau. Goudreau has already said that he is not going to re-sign with them. So, and he's probably going to sign in New Jersey or on the Isle, and so they're going to take a step back. So now Kachuk, who's a restricted free agent, it's possible that a team signs him and then gives up a bunch of first round picks for him. That is definitely possible because there will be compensation coming back if somebody signs him, or he can get signed by somebody and then they can match it.
Yeah,
But I think, I think if somebody does sign Kachuk, then they would let him go and take the picks because they're just not going to have enough horses to contend again. So if Calgary takes that step back, then you're looking at a team like Vancouver that could slide right in there, and it's going to be, a free for all in that division because then you're looking at the LA Kings, Edmonton, and some of these other teams that really weren't as good. So Vancouver can contend.
no, and again, if the Flames And when we did our NHL playoffs, I had them possibly being the one team that could beat the Avalanche.
Right.
So you look at the losses there. Vancouver improved so far in free agency. Edmonton Oilers at least stayed in house, maybe a little better in goaltending now.
Right.
So Calgary could be on the downslide, which leaves that division open.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
so let's move on to the Central Division, where we're going to start off St. Louis, who again was a very good team, played extremely well in the playoffs. Obviously, fell to Colorado, but what have they done so far?
Okay, well, they re-signed Nick Leddy, which was very big, but there is speculation that Torrey Krug could be on the way out. Because if you have Nick Leddy, then what do you need Torrey Krug for? And Torrey Krug is making a ton of money, but the question is, are they going to be able to move Torrey Krug? So they also re-signed Thomas to an 8-year, $64 million extension. It's keeping him there for like nearly a decade at this point. So 9 more years. So, and that is big because he was a really, really good player for them. So that's big for St. Louis. But they also went out and signed Noel Acciari. And Noel Acciari had a great season for Florida. You know, his first year in Florida, he had, I believe, 20-something goals in the first year there. But they got him for his grit, and the fact that he can put it in the net as well. I mean, they're probably intending on him being a third or fourth liner. But again, that's somebody that has some skill along with that toughness. And I don't know if it's that they felt that they weren't tough enough, because I think they were. I just don't think that they were as skilled as Colorado.
Yeah.
So, but St. Louis seems to be doing the right things to get back there. So if they choose to trade Krug, which I don't see why they would, because they went out and they grabbed him for a reason, and he's a good player, and he's a very talented offensive player. And frankly, I think he's better than Nick Leddy, but he is more expensive than Nick Leddy. So
Sometimes finance
yeah.
sometimes could play a part or a factor.
So, and you're going to see a lot of this, today. Teams are going out and signing players, and then you're shaking their head. Well, they already have a guy like that. Well, that just means that they're going to try to move them and get some space on the cap. And like I said, that could be one of those things that they're going to try, because, St. Louis has about about $9 million on the cap before the day started, and they signed Leddy for about 5. Thomas, get an extension, but that won't matter for this coming season. So, if they're only going to have $4 million left on the cap, they might try to make some room.
Yeah, need some wiggle room there. What about the Chicago Blackhawks? They're an interesting team. So it looked like they were going to dump everybody and not have any signings. And you had mentioned Patrick Kane as a possible trade, candidate. It looks like they're trying to make some moves to stay competitive.
Well, yeah, they're getting some bodies in there. I think the bodies that they're getting are to teach the young guys. But the problem with that is when you trade DeBrincat, who was only 24, 2-time 40-goal scorer, only 24, and Doc was, I believe, 23. All these moves just don't make any sense to me in Chicago. It's like they want to rebuild, but they want to rebuild, with under 23. I mean, that doesn't make any sense, because by the time NHLers come into play, they're about 22, 23 when they're first starting. So, and then they take a couple more years to bloom, right? But they went out and they signed Athanasiou, 1 year, $3 million. Max Domi, 1 year, $3 million. So it's short terms, and not a lot of risk, but you could have a high reward.
Well,
So
look, if they struggle again this season, you're picking up pieces that are less expensive to try to trade to continue to maybe then like you said, then it maybe goes to a complete rebuild.
yeah, yeah.
But if they're successful and they're playing well, it didn't cost you much on one end of it. So yeah, I mean, it might be a smart move by the Blackhawks.
Well, I mean, I know why they're doing it. Like they are truly rebuilding. But they were rebuilding from scratch when they already had a couple of young pieces that they should have kept.
Yeah.
Like Chicago is not strapped for money, so they should have kept DeBrincat. You know, they should have. I can understand trading Doc. He wasn't as good as his rookie year. And that's fine. So if you already lost faith in him, that's fine. But you just probably gave away the best talent in the NHL for goal scoring, at the age of 24. Too young to
Makes
give
no
up
sense.
on.
Yeah,
It
that
made
makes
no sense. And Colin Blackwell is another guy they signed 2 years for $1.2 million. And like I said, these could be pieces that they trade away, at the trade deadline because Athanasiou, Max Domi, they're going to be in high demand, those kind of players. And so why not trade them and get a piece for them later? And I get that, you know, but it's all those guys are there to make the younger players, have a role model in the organization. I mean, you're going to have Taves and you're going to have Kane most likely to start the year because I think Patrick Kane could be dealt trade deadline next season. Um, I think they want to just see what they can do, you know, with this roster.
Sometimes look until they're on the ice and they're all together, you don't know what you have. So um, it'd be interesting. I mean, they finished 28-42, 12 overtime losses, 68 points.
Yeah.
Not very good. The
No.
only team that was worse was the Coyotes, and we know what kind of mess that organization is right now. So,
Although the Coyotes are looking a lot better this season than Chicago.
21 points behind the next team, the Jets.
Yeah.
So you're talking about that was a big disparity, a big gap there. What about Dallas? So the Stars, who are a fun team, again, almost got out of the first round in the playoffs.
Yep.
What do you think about their moves?
Well, like with Dallas, they picked up Mason Marchment from Florida, had a good year. They gave him 4 years, $4.5 million. So another guy leaving Florida. So that's a good pickup. The question mark is going to remain Klingberg, who then now starting talks again. And it looks like, to me, I don't think Klingberg is going anywhere. I think he's going to stay in Dallas. To me, it just makes sense because if Dallas can get one more piece in there, they can contend. As long as they have Klingberg.
Yeah. And
They
finished fourth in the division. So
right. So they're not that far away. So they have two solid lines with the addition of Marchment. They're going to have that second line winger, probably to play with Sagan on his line. So he's probably going to go on the first line with Sagan, and that'll leave the second line intact. And so I think they're going to have some scoring punch. If they can get another defenseman that's mobile, maybe like a Torrey Krug, just saying, that would now make this team be able to come out of their own zone.
But would St. Louis trade
authority.
within the division? I mean,
Probably not. I don't think they would trade with Dallas because I don't know if Dallas can give them what they want, to St. Louis, which is going to be one of those one of those top forwards,
Yeah.
and that would defeat the purpose.
Yeah. So Dallas actually, to your point, look, the third worst in scoring, goals for 238
Right.
last season, isn't going to get it done, especially in the playoffs. And I think that's most of their games were like 1-0 in the playoffs. It was very low scoring.
Absolutely.
They need to get some scoring opportunities.
And that's
And
what they're
again, the
hoping
division's
Marchment
very
is.
tough. You're talking the defending champs will be in there with the Avalanche. The Wild have done some really good things, and they kept Fleury. They made a move as well, trading
Yes.
away their goaltender. So, and then you
Yes.
got the Blues, and then we expect, the Predators to still again be. This is a very good division.
Right.
So Dallas, to me, you're right. They have to get some goal scorers. They have to get guys that are going to be able to give them
Yeah, and
opportunities.
they're hoping Marchment can solve that problem. That's what they're hoping for. So if he gets added and you keep Klingberg and you can pick up some offensive defensemen that can get the puck out of their own end and come out with authority, then you're talking that they might close the gap a little. But that's a big if. You have to keep Klingberg and you have to get another defenseman.
So let's move on to the Metro. Some fun teams here as well. So New York Rangers
Yeah.
have made some moves, and again, we know what kind of success they had in the playoffs. Very fun story when it came to rooting for them. They were a young team, probably peaked earlier than most expected. So far, they've made some moves. What do you think?
Okay, so let's talk about the guys that they lost first. They lost
Hey.
Andrew Kopp. So draft deadline pickup, Andrew Kopp gone. Vetrano also picked up before the deadline. He's gone, and Braun is gone. So they lost some
Hey, Braun is
guys.
gone.
Braun is gone, but they did pick up our old friend in Boston, Yaroslav Halak, New York Rangers,
Yeah.
to replace Georgiev, that they lost to Colorado. They traded him away, so they got Halak as a backup goaltender, clear backup to Shesterkin, and Halak is knowing he's going in as a backup.
Yeah.
So there's going to be no controversy. You can't pay Georgiev a starting goaltender pay and use him as a backup, so they had to make the change.
Oh, makes sense.
And they also signed Vincent Trocheck away from Carolina, and that is in itself huge because you took away something from the best team in the division and put him on your team, who was second best. And to me, that makes you jump over Carolina because Carolina has been losing players left and right. Even though they did pick up a big defenseman, but we'll get to that in a minute. But I think that gives the Rangers that second line center that's going to be really good. He's such a good player.
Yeah.
7 years, $5.65 million per year. If they would have given him 5 years, it would have been a bigger contract. You would have talked like $7 million a year.
Yeah.
But I think this worked for Vinny Trocheck. He's a hell of a hockey player. I would have liked to see him sign for Boston, even over David Krejci, because of the age difference.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And
You
we'll get
know?
to Boston. So,
They
so I
also
like the
signed Louis Domingue as well. But that's not really a big signing. But the
but look,
Trocheck signing is huge.
they're not staying packed.
No.
They had an opportunity. They came within one game of making it to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yes.
To me, look, with the experience they gained last season, you add a couple pieces. You've got one of the best goaltenders in the league in Shesterkin.
Yeah.
They're very capable of winning this division and making it to the Cup.
Yeah, and I don't think they're done today. They traded away Nemeth and a second round pick to get Ty Emberson from Arizona, Emberson to New York trade. Yeah. They gave up that second round pick, basically to clear cap space. So they are not done by no means. So look for them to be doing more.
So, speaking of the Hurricanes, well, you said they made some moves, but they've lost some players. So, what do you think so far with the Carolina Panthers early in this free agency?
Yeah, this is not looking good. They lost Max Domi, they lost Trocheck, they lost Cole. I gotta think that they're gonna probably lose Niederreiter as well because I just don't know if they're gonna re-sign these guys because I think they believe that their young players are ready to come in and take those jobs. So they have 19.2 on the cap before the trade with Burns, for Burns. In case you did not know, which we're going to tell you, Brent Burns and Peterson to Carolina for Lawrence Makaniemi, and 2023 third round pick go the other way to San Jose. So they did pick up a big defenseman to fill, that void since Hamilton has gone. So they got better defensively, but they're losing a lot of pieces on that offense. So, but like I said, if those kids come in and play a full season like they did with those spot days where they had some injuries
Yeah.
and COVID, they should be okay.
And they're well coached. And we talked about that during the playoffs.
Absolutely. Rod
Well
Brindamore is
coached,
fantastic.
and sometimes that can make a difference even when you lose some players. If you've got a coach in there that knows how to maximize the talent that he has on the team, and we saw that with the Carolina Hurricanes, because we know that we felt they weren't the best team, and every series they just kept making better moves than their opponents.
Yeah, and that was the thing. It's like on paper they weren't as good as the Bruins. On paper they weren't as good as a lot of these other teams that they had to play, and we all know that Carolina had one of the best seasons in the league.
Yeah. So, what about the Pittsburgh Penguins? We again, another interesting team that we thought they may go in a different direction. And they kept one of their stars. So
they kept two of their stars. Don't forget, Letang re-signed
before
the draft.
Yes, you are correct.
Look, it's easy to compare the two teams between Pittsburgh and Boston because they have a lot of players that are aging stars. And stars they are, like Malkin is a big star. And, so he's coming back for another go.
What, 4 years, right? Was it a 3 or 4 year deal?
Where is the Malkin? 4 years, $6 million per year. So he's getting about the same money as he was getting, and I think that's a good deal for him. Don't forget, he is aging 36, I believe. He's a year younger than Patrice Bergeron. Still playing at an all-star caliber, just like Patrice Bergeron. So the only difference is he's not ready to hang it up.
Yeah.
And signing a 4-year deal shows that. Patrice Bergeron just wants to play it year by year. And the Bruins will keep giving him that contract as long as he wants to play.
Makes sense.
And he still has that talent. So, but, Pittsburgh re-signing Malkin, re-signing Letang bodes well for Pittsburgh's chances. And, you're going to have to contend with Crosby in 3 years. So they still got a lot of time on that. So Pittsburgh's core is going to be together.
And you think about the goaltending situation during the playoffs, right? They were on their third starter, but that experience as well. So you might be better in between the pipes, next season. You keep your stars. Yeah. So again, and keep Crosby happy. As much as I know your feelings towards Crosby, sometimes you got to keep these stars, at least showing them that you're
Oh,
willing to
absolutely.
keep these guys.
Look, I'm not saying Crosby isn't a good player. You know, I mean, he's not top 5 in the league. Is what I'm
Here we
saying.
go again.
You know, that's all I'm saying. Pittsburgh. He's not top 5 in the league all time or currently.
And there you go with your Christmas cards from Pittsburgh.
That's right. None from Pittsburgh.
None from Pittsburgh. Done.
So but no, the guy that they're going to lose is Evan Rodriguez because they really can't sign him unless they make some cap space somehow, and I don't know how they'll do that without, rocking the boat. But they did sign Jan Ruda, so that leads me to believe, when you got 3 defensemen on that right side that are getting 4+. Somebody's going because you can't keep a guy, on your depth chart, a third pairing, that high. So I believe it's not going to be Letang and it's not going to be Jan Ruda going. That's going to leave a big hole for somebody who's got to be looking over his shoulders right now. And Pittsburgh just can't carry a third pairing defenseman, um, with a $4 million contract on that defense.
Yeah.
And so be looking for the Pittsburgh Penguins to trade John Marino because he's making $4.4 million, and that's just not going to happen. You can't have so many guys making $4 million on your roster. And right now, Letang, 6, Matheson, 4.8 on the left side, Marino, 4.4, Dumoulin, 4.1, Peterson, 4. The numbers just don't add up. So Marino on that right side, he's probably going to be the odd man out, and I can see him getting traded at probably some point today.
So what about the Capitals? Again, another interesting team. Ovechkin aging, right, but didn't show it much. I mean, until the playoffs, when he right before the playoffs, he had an injury, but he's still a top goal scorer in the league. So what did they do to help him out?
Okay, well, first they cleaned out all their goaltending. They cleaned it out, and they signed Darcy Kemper, which I called that, already earlier before the trade, before the frenzy started.
Your hockey knowledge impeccable. I told you.
Like, soon as I saw, okay, they got rid of their goaltending, I was like, oh, this is definitely Kemper now. I was sure of it. But trading away, one goaltender, then not re-signing another, you knew something was happening.
How big is that though for Colorado?
Not big at all because I don't think they wanted Kemper.
Okay.
So I think they feel they upgraded with Georgiev from the Rangers. Because look, Darcy Kemper won the cup with under 900 save percentage. So they feel you just play well enough, you're gonna be able to contend because the team is loaded.
Gotcha.
Now that is before losing Burakovsky and possibly Kadri. If they lose Kadri, then it's a big deal. So you do need another goaltender, and that's why they went out and got Georgiev to go with Francouz. But
so what else
Pittsburgh, Washington, yeah, they also signed. They signed another goaltender. Where is it? There's so many notes. Charlie Lindgren. Don't know the terms, but I believe it's only a year contract for Lindgren. There's so many I have Lindgren right next to Lindblom.
Yeah.
So they did sign another goaltender. So Kemper and Lindgren are their tandem that they're going in with, and I think that's a pretty good step up. That's a big step up, actually. Samsonov just doesn't get it done as every other goaltender that they had in there last season.
Yeah, and we talked
Didn't get
about
it
it,
done.
right? That was that one piece. Defense, goaltending was going to
Yeah.
be their Achilles heel, and it came to fruition. So,
Yeah. So with that, I mean, look, if Kemper can play well, like he did throughout the whole season, then I think Washington put themselves back in the picture. But they're going to have to do it without Backstrom for a while. So,
but can we also say, look, hockey, the difference with hockey, though, in basketball, you can move a player to another team, they'll still be successful. Sometimes what's in front of you in hockey makes the difference as well. So if you're well defensively, you got good defensemen,
absolutely.
right? You got good offensive goal scorers that are your
Right.
numbers look a lot better.
It's easy to do that when you're in Colorado.
Exactly, right? So that was where I would question, how much better you're going to be if the
Yeah.
guys in front of you aren't as
And,
talented as
and
they were in
let's
Colorado.
be honest, like we said this all last season, look at Colorado's competition out in the West as
Yeah,
opposed to the East when, Washington is going to have to play Carolina, the New York Rangers, Pittsburgh. Now you're going to have to deal with the Islanders, coming back stronger this season, and possibly even with Goudreau. Columbus is no slouch. They have some skill. And then the Atlantic teams, there's
yeah.
going to be at least 6 that are going to be strong now.
So it'll be interesting to see because again, he's been there in Colorado for a little bit. They had some early playoff mishaps,
Right.
and this year they just seem to put it all together.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see how that's going to work out for Washington. But let's talk about some of these Atlantic teams. Let's start off with Buffalo.
Buffalo has actually done a really good job this season. I gotta give it to them.
And they drafted well, right? You said they had
I
a
do
very
like
good
their draft, and you could potentially see a player or two coming through their system this season that are going to be good players. Um, but they're not just sitting there doing nothing. They signed Ilya Libuskin, 2 years, 2.75. Goaltender Eric Comrie. They signed Hinestroza 1 year at 1.7. So again, that's in that same category as like Chicago, but Chicago is using it differently.
Mm-hmm.
They need some bodies in there. Buffalo is using it to provide some punch, as some offensive punch with this with the young talent that they've got. So if they strike with a player like Hinestroza, then you might see him come back because he'll get a raise, it most likely, and if you have to give him a raise at 2.5, so he's a potential guy that could stay there. Um, trying to think who else they signed. I think that might be it for now. But that you're talking 3 players, and they also re-signed some of their other guys. Olafson, he re-signed. So but they still have like Boychuk out there, Colin Miller, Butcher. These guys are good players. Boychuk is a little longer in the tooth, but Colin Miller, I think he could possibly re-sign, but not for $4 million. It might take like $3 million to get Colin Miller back. I don't think they're going to go Boychuk at $6 million, what he was making. There's no way they re-sign him. So but so they're making some noise, and they're going to go obviously younger. Like they have been rebuilding,
Yeah.
but I think that talent is starting to come to fruition.
Yeah, and again, 32 and 39 last season, 11 overtime losses, but so not a horrible record. 75 points. Look, just the teams ahead of them were obviously juggernauts with the
Yeah.
Panthers, the Maple Leafs, Lightning, and Bruins. So,
Right.
but they finished 5th in the division.
Absolutely.
So, But I'm going to call this now the next champion next season, the Detroit Red Wings. They've made some moves because every year Colorado wins. The next year, the Detroit Red Wings have won the Stanley Cup. So
Yeah, and it's funny because Detroit is starting to put some pieces together. And it's funny that they must be aware of that history because they went out and they signed Andrew Kopp, 5 years, 5.625. That's a big signing. Um, they're looking for him to be behind Dylan Larkin. The only problem is Dylan Larkin will be a free agent at the end of next season, so that could be an issue. So that in itself is a big signing for them. But they also went out and they got Perron from St. Louis, and that's a big character role right there. He's going to bring stability in that locker room. You kind of equate him to guys, you know, like a Patrice Bergeron and Nate McKinnon. These guys that hold the locker room. Like a Zdeno Chara.
yeah.
These guys are leaders, and Perron is definitely gonna bring stability there. And they also went out and signed Ben Sherratt. So Florida loses Ben Sherratt as well. So you're shoring up the middle, you're shoring up the defense. Look, I like what I'm seeing from this Detroit team, and they could be a
Calling it.
contender next year.
Calling it. When we do our NHL preview show,
I still think you're wrong right now. It's not enough.
I'm definitely wrong, but I'm calling it right now. So let's talk about Tampa Bay. So again, lost in the Stanley Cup after trying to three-peat.
Oh my God!
They lost some guys, made some moves. So what do you think?
This team, I almost don't know what they're thinking. I know what they're thinking. I think they like their core, and they're trying to keep it together probably a little too long. Okay, so first of all, they extended Sergachev 8 years, 8.5 million. Think that's a little much for Sergachev. That's a little overpaying, probably about $2.5 million for that long. They extended. That's Sergachev on the other page. Anthony Cirelli, 8 years, 6.25 million. This is a guy that doesn't score 20 goals. That is way overpaying him. Way overpaying. Yeah, I get that you like how he plays, but I'm sorry, you can find that guy on any roster.
Yeah.
Any roster.
Again, though, you go to 3 Stanley Cups. You're not trying to keep.
I know.
It's when do you break it up?
Exactly. But they also signed Eric Chernak, 8 years, 5.2 million. I think they're trying to be ahead of the curve on this one. It could go either way. If he turns out to be not the guy that they wanted, that's not a good deal. But if he does show the progress, then $5 million a year isn't so bad. If he's going to put up those numbers, then he's going to be a good deal. So that could go either way. I just think that they're putting too many years on players that really you can pick them up pretty much any season for cheaper.
So let me ask you this, and I'll equate it to the '90s Bulls. And if you watch The Last Dance, you saw that last season. It basically said, "Look, we're blowing this thing up after this, no matter what." Clearly, they could have probably won another one, right? Yeah. Do you think Tampa Bay is going to hold on too long where it comes back on them, or are they going to be able to continue this run they've had?
I think it's going to come back on them. I really do, because you're still going to have some of these other guys, in the next couple of years, that they're going to have to make adjustments, and I know they're hoping that salary cap continues to climb, but this is not the NFL. Where that you're going to have more money to spend next year. It doesn't always work that way. And
You also thought
and I got a feeling it's
Vasilevsky,
going to.
you got the
Right, you're
goaltender though.
going to have to deal with a lot of these. Yeah. So okay, if you look at okay, so Alexander Killorn, he is going to be a free agent next year. So so you're going to have to deal with that. Nemesnikov, free agent next year. So they're going to have Corey Perry will also be a free agent next year. They're not going to re-sign him. They just signed Ian Cole for 1 year, $3 million. So next year he'll be a free agent as well. So they're going to have. Vasilevsky is signed for until 2026, so he's not a problem. So I mean, Victor Hedman's 3 years. That's the next problem. Is 3 years when you're going to
So again,
really
you
feel
think
it.
they got 3 solid years? Maybe these moves aren't as bad as they look, because again, at that point you blow it up.
Yeah,
But
I
if
mean, yeah, I guess you could do that. I mean, you'll probably have to maybe buy out one bad contract. They're not all going to be bad contracts, but you're pretty much saying one of those is going to be a bad one, and then you're going to be stuck with 8.5 million or 6.5 million um, for dead cap space.
yeah,
So one of them isn't so bad if one of them doesn't pan out, but if a couple don't,
yeah,
then you're
no,
talking problems. So, but
understandable.
it is Tampa Bay, so they seem to know what they're doing.
Exactly. What about Ottawa?
Oh my God, Ottawa! Do they not look like they're gonna make the playoffs this year? I'll tell you, the teams in front of them need to look out, and I don't mean Buffalo and Detroit. I mean Toronto, Boston, Tampa, Florida, and I put a big target on Florida.
Yeah,
Put a
a lot of
big target
losses.
on there.
Yeah,
Look, Ottawa. Not only did they have the steal of the draft, getting DeBrincat, the 40-goal scorer for 2 seasons, and he's only 24 years old. That was a steal, because there's no way you're going to get a DeBrincat, you know,
in
you
the
know,
draft. Yeah,
in that draft this year. It's not happening. So that was a win to go along with the other guys that they drafted, which I thought they drafted pretty well. But they also signed Claude Giroux today. 3 years, $6.5 million to go on that first line with DeBrincat. That is looking nice. So that in itself made the whole day for Ottawa. But they weren't done. They went out and traded for Cam Talbot. Minnesota re-signs
yeah.
Fleury. They trade away Talbot for Gustafsson. And here you are. You have Talbot that is ready to go as your number one guy.
Went over 30 games, so
Yeah,
he's a very solid goaltender. It wasn't we thought going into the playoffs, right? The 1-2 punch, both of them for
absolutely.
goaltending. Probably one of the best 1-2 punches the Wild had. So that definitely, yeah. Think about it. We keep talking about the strengths being in between the pipes.
Yeah, and that Ottawa team now all of a sudden looks scarier. With DeBrincat and Claude Giroux on that roster, and they immediately obviously going to take the first line over. I don't know who they're going to have on that left wing with them, but I have Matty Tkachuk, and the Tkachuk
Yeah,
family is pretty solid no matter what player you're looking at. And Brady Tkachuk is no slouch. He is a good player. So Claude Giroux with DeBrincat and Kachuk is a scary top line. The question is going to be, who's going to fill in the gaps? Batherson at center. They got some guys there that are young, talented. Watson, another Bobby Ryan, Connor Brown. So they're going to fill it in with all these young guys. But that defense is actually pretty decent too. They have Thomas Shabbat and they have Zaitsev, who are very, very good defensemen. Harmonic, Nick Holden, like these guys can can improve if they can go out and they can get some leadership, along to go with Claude Giroux. I think I think that's where they can fill in some gaps now, bringing in some leadership roles. Oh, this team will be scary.
It's going to be fun to watch it all come together. So we're going to finish off with our local team, your team, the Boston Bruins.
Yep.
And the moves they've made and some expected moves coming up. I know Krejci has definitely been. I don't even think it's a secret anymore that he's in town, and it looks like that's going to happen probably within a day or two here.
Yeah, so what's going on with the Bruins is, all right, so they have a little over $4 million on the salary cap. 4.75. Okay, so obviously they've got some guys to sign. And we know that Krejci's in town. We know Krejci is signing. And we know Bergeron is coming back. And we know he's signing with the Bruins. So they can't really announce anything until they clear the cap space to cover both of them. Because, in my opinion, I think they're going to announce them both at the same time. I mean, I think that's the way Patrice Bergeron wants it. If he knows about Krejci, which I'm sure he knows. Like, they're not making any moves without Bergeron knowing, because they want Bergeron to come back, so they're going to tell him everything. So I think they want to tell, the press at the same time that they just signed Bergeron and Krejci, to such and such contracts, probably 1-year contracts for both. And I'm guessing Bergeron probably for what he was making last season, and Krejci probably for around 4.5, 5 million, maybe even less to come back. So to me, they need to clear out about 7 million to make room for them. Now, that means they're going to have to get $4 million, added to another 7. So to get 7, you'll have to trade Forbert and Riley Smith to get 6 million back. So that means a guy like Noshik or Foligno needs to be shipped out as well. So there's 3 or 4 guys that they got to get rid of in order to bring those 2 guys in. And I think it can be done because, look, a defenseman like Riley Smith is going to be needed somewhere. They'll try trading him for maybe, 3rd, 4th round picks, maybe even lower than that, just to clear out that space. And that's fine. They also have Studnicka, who's a restricted free agent. And they're going to need him. Because he's supposed to be the future of, of this team. And they need him to hit. Because they haven't had a first-round pick since the 3 back-to-backs. And everybody still claims that those are bad picks, but Zaboral is not a bad pick. He is going to make this team, especially with Forbert and Riley leaving. With that, they traded Howler to New Jersey for Pavel Zacha, which I like that deal. Look, I think Howler, had a good streak with Pasternak and Taylor Hall on his wings just by accident. So, but if you're bringing in Krejci, a legitimate center, then you don't need
Yeah.
Holla, and he is not going to score 18 goals plus without
Yeah, on the third or fourth
talent.
line. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just not going to happen. He was nothing. He only had like 3 goals, previous of that line. So that's not going to happen, and they know it's not going to happen. And so therefore, I think the Bruins are going to go with a lot of younger players because of injuries. For one, it's going to be tough to get rid of Riley with his injury anyway. So they might have to just give him away. But again, if they do all these things, they can get Krejci, they can get Bergeron, and Zaboru moves into the third pairing with Clifton, and then you're looking all happy, a happy run without all these guys like Foligno taking up space for no reason. Look, I'm not saying Foligno didn't have his value, and he can bring value to a team like Ottawa, say, who needs that leadership. He would be perfect for that team. Put him on the third, fourth line on that team. That makes a difference for that team. It doesn't make a difference for a Bruins team because they already had the leadership. And if you're not going to put up the goals,
Yeah.
then what good are you? So to clear some space to bring some younger players in, like Anton Bleed, Thomas Steen, Studnicka, those guys will get playing time on the fourth line, and you can bring them along. By the time playoffs come around, they should be established, and that was the whole purpose of getting rid of Cassidy.
Yeah.
And thank you, Jake DeBrusk, for rescinding your
Trade.
trade
Request.
request because Cassidy is gone. Even though they're saying, "Oh, it's because he played so well." No, it had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with Cassidy.
Yeah.
So that is what you're looking at for the Boston Bruins.
So we normally do our show every Friday, 6 p.m. So many different platforms on Rhode Island Broadcasting. What story are we going to be talking about Friday? What guys are still out there that haven't signed that we're going to be talking about on Friday to say, hey, this guy, this was a big sign.
This Friday, we're going to be talking about Johnny Gaudreau coming to the East. And I still think it's going to be the New Jersey Devils. I think the Devils have more cap space, and they will offer him more money, and he's going to take the more money. The better move would be him on the Islanders because he'll be able to go, a deep playoff run, and that team is already loaded with talent, and he would just put the check mark on, potential Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
So, of course, we're going to be talking about Kadri, and these are all going to happen probably within like an hour after we go off air today. So we're going to be talking about Kadri. We're going to talk about oh my God, I just lost his name from Dallas. Klinberg from Dallas. So those guys are going to be signed. Of course, we're going to be talking about Bergeron and Krejci signing. The question is whether or not we're going to be talking about Matthew Tkachuk. That might take a little while because he's a restricted free agent. So you're going to see a lot of these unrestricted free agents go off the board before somebody takes a look at that. I don't know. First of all, I don't know who wouldn't want to sign Matthew Tkachuk and take a chance and see if Calgary matches. Because I'll give up 4 or 5 first rounders for Matthew Tkachuk any day of the week.
So let me ask you this before we take off. Best move so far today?
Ooh, best move has to be Ottawa with that Claude Giroux. I really, truly believe that. And if not that, then Washington's Darcy Kemper. And look, and I'm not really, sold on Darcy Kemper, but that is a step up.
Yeah, they needed to improve that. What about worst move or move that will probably come back to haunt a team?
Probably one of those extensions that Tampa Bay gave. I don't know which one. My guess would be Sorelli. Because if you're not going to score 20 plus goals, like his best season, I believe, was 19, and that was his best season. And I don't think he could ever really match that. That's going to come back and bite him.
So, Ron, obviously, I want to thank you for your hockey knowledge. As always, impeccable. I know you're going to still continue to watch and follow. We'll be on Friday
Glued to it
to see what else we're going to be discussing when it comes to the NHL. So if you enjoy what you're watching, check us out. So many different ways to follow us. It's all on the ticker that's been running. I can't wait for Friday. I think we're going to have a blast. There's a lot to go over. So, and our normal show, we cover all of the major sports. So not just NHL, we're on NBA, NFL, MLB. We got so much to go over, tennis. So we'll be talking a lot of different sports.
Yeah, so who will it be first? Will it be Goudreau or will it be KD?
Yeah. Who gets, yeah. I don't think KD's
You
going
know?
anywhere. But I want to thank you again. Check us out. All these social medias, follow us, subscribe to Rhode Island Broadcasting. You can get some great information, some behind the scenes, as well as if you like to sponsor the show. There's, RI broadcasting.media at gmail.com.
Yes.
So check us out. We got some, we're looking for some sponsors. So
absolutely.
Continue to check us out, sponsor the show. Ron, I will see you on Friday, my friend.
Absolutely.
All right. Continue to watch, man. Enjoy.
Have a good night, everybody.
Peace.